Everybody, welcome back to the Ball and Breakfast podcast with Wayne. I'm Patrick. Back with you here. We've been doing a lot of baseball coverage recently. If you haven't caught it, our last episode, we did a 1990s to present day MLB draft. It was about as long as the Oppenheimer movie. So if you enjoy long form content, it's definitely one of those type of videos, but a lot of fun. Millennials, eat your hearts out, especially baseball fans. And outside of that, yeah, we are kind of coming up here at the start of the NFL season, which for a lot of us is one of the best times of the year. For a lot of our wives, girlfriends, family members, they dread it if they're not into football. So we are about to be out of touch with reality for the next 4 or 5 months or so. So with that, tonight we're doing a review of a half PPR draft that was put together by the analysts at ESPN. They did a 12-teamer with their analysts and kind of went, 15 to 16 rounds deep of picks. What we're going to do is we're going to look at that draft and we're going to go round by round. And Wayne and I are each going to pick one player that really stood out in each round that we're looking to target in our fantasy leagues, respectively. We'll give you a little background on the players, why we like them so much, and why they could be, good values for each one of those rounds. So, without further ado, I'll kick it over to Wayne to start off in round one and tell me, who your favorite player in that round, was.
I mean, your favorite round one. Honestly, if this player is available either like 6th through 12th, I feel like I would definitely take him. That's Travis Kelce. So I think the tight end position, premium position. Most leagues you only get one tight end there, and Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, they didn't really add too much around Patrick Mahomes there. So I know Kelce's only getting older, but still, like, he's going to get a ton of targets still. I anticipate he most likely will lead the league in like touchdowns, probably get 100 receptions, 1,500 yards at a tight end position. Last year, like, blew it out of the waters. I think he got the triple crown for tight ends for receptions, yards, and TDs. So I honestly anticipate something similar this year. So that for me was like the one thing that stood out is Travis Kelce over there. I think Clay took him at number 7, and for me, that honestly to me is like kind of I don't want to say the steal of the draft, but to me, like, if you had Kelce against 6 through 12, I feel like you got to take him there, and that's a great pick.
Absolutely, yeah. Kelce was starred on my list here of guys I wanted to talk about for round one. But like you were saying, Wayne, at least in half PPR scoring, Kelce had 80 more points than the second best tight end last year. By comparison, for running back, the top running back only had 20 more points than the runner-up. Wide receivers, 14, and QBs only 8 points. So just that separation from the best and the next best player for that position is just like insane. And even when you look at his total points, he's right up there with, some of the top receivers that may go, running backs may be on a little bit different of a, point threshold, but in the same sense, I mean, just if you want to lock that position down, not have to think about it, have a true advantage all throughout your year. I mean, that's a great pick. So, I'm definitely on board with that. From my end, I am listening to some of the hype. I am thinking about team context and, position of value. And, I think with running backs, creating a little bit more depth, when you start to get into some of the later, early rounds, even some of the mid-round picks. I mean, I feel like you can find some pretty decent running back depth. So I'm looking at wide receiver. There are 2 guys that definitely stand out to me, but I'm kind of going with the runner-up, kind of like the dark horse in Jamar Chase. And, I say that because, if you look at all the wide receivers in the first round, he by far is the best quarterback. You just think about pure passers. What he was able to do in a 12-game sample last year. He had 87, receptions, 9 touchdowns. If you, projected that out to 17 games, he would have had 123 receptions, 13 touchdowns, and 1,500, receiving yards, which would have made him, for receptions, second in, the receptions category, second in the touchdowns category, and 5th in the overall yards category. Jay Jets is, right there. He's a leader in that space for sure. Like, they're neck and neck. I would coin flip either one of them, but I just think there's something about Jamar, his ability to maybe get a little bit more, back into the downfield game like he was in his rookie season. His average yard per target last year was pretty low, and I think Burrow also kind of held himself back. He did a lot more checkdowns than he was doing a couple seasons ago. So I think if they ramp up that offense, obviously an improved O line with Orlando, Brown coming over. I think the sky's the limit for this team, and a slight knock maybe on Minnesota for another season of Cousins. Maybe not much a running game to speak about. Putting a lot of onus on Jefferson to be the guy, and I think he'll still put up his numbers. But yeah, I'm just giving the slight edge to Jamar Chase. So I'm looking to grab him in the first round.
Wow, no, I think that's a bold statement. I feel like because I know a lot of people have Justin Jefferson like as number one, right? So, I mean, I would probably still lean on Justin Jefferson a little bit, just because, yeah, like he doesn't have the wide receiver talent around him compared to Jamar Chase. With Higgins, Boyd, and then also Mixon as well. So they actually have a run game if they want to run. But no, I can see that way. I mean, Jamar Chase, I think, is such a talented wide out. But I mean, for me, I don't know, man. I got to pick. I got Justin Jefferson number one. If I got the first pick, I'm taking JJ there.
Fair enough. We'll see how it goes this year. On to round two. Wayne, who do you got in round two?
Oh man, round two. Was this okay? This was a Yates, I think. He got my running back that I would like to highlight a little bit here is Tony Pollard. I love me some Tony Pollard. I remember getting him kind of in the later rounds, I think last year, and I feel like, without that Ezekiel Elliott, is he going to be like the guy and stuff anymore there? I feel like they're going to open up things more for Tony Pollard there. The Dallas Cowboys, they really don't have like additional talent as compared to like what they had last year. They still have CeeDee Lamb and such, but the running back room, it's going to be Pollard, right? And with that offensive line too, with Tony Pollard running behind that and all the explosive plays that he was able to do this previous season, I feel like he will, kind of carry that on into this coming season, and he'll also get some receptions as well. So for me, I really like the Tony Pollard pick there, kind of, in the upper half of the second round. So yeah, I love me some Tony Pollard this year.
Yeah. I feel like while I do think Pollard will have a good year, I think you're drafting him at his peak at number 16 overall. I feel like I'd like to see a little bit more in Pollard before I start giving him the red carpet treatment in terms of like using a high end value pick on him. I don't know. I mean, Dallas still has an offensive line. They're still, moving the ball through the run game. It seems like something they definitely fall back on. I think last year Pollard came out at least in half PPR with about 230 fantasy points. I think it made him approach that top 10, if not in the top 10. I know he was splitting some work with a pretty inefficient Ezekiel Elliott, but yeah, I mean, not to say I dislike the player, but maybe in terms of value, I might want to wait on a guy like Pollard, even though in these drafts you're not really, able to wait too long on the guys you want to go after.
Who would you choose instead of Pollard in that instance?
In this instance, there are two running backs that I would for sure take over Tony Pollard. The one I actually have starred, and I guess both that I was planning to talk about, I didn't really know. It's kind of a coin flip again for me as well. But, JT and Josh Jacobs for me, I think are getting a little bit of a knock here because of this threat that they are not going to re-sign, the threat that they're going to hold out. I don't make much of that. I mean, financial penalties are getting stiffer with the new CBA. Neither of these guys are going to sit back and watch, money go out the door. They're also in their walk years, so it's kind of a prove it year for both of them. Taylor, for one, said he wants to honor that contract. He said that his rookie year, and despite having a huge setback last year with a very pedestrian Colts offense with Matt Ryan at the helm. I think Anthony Richardson's the kind of guy who's going to open up space for JT to thrive. I think obviously being in his own walk year, I would think all things, all things are, go for him. I think he's going to be locked and loaded, wanting to have a good bounce back. We don't really know if he's going to get traded at this point. I'm still kind of thinking he'll play at least half a season with the Colts and maybe be a trade deadline type of guy, given, most teams aren't going to give up a lot of draft capital for a running back, especially when they got to pay him top dollar. And that's really where JT is looking to move next. When I think about Josh Jacobs, I mean, he was, at least last year, most carries, most rush yards, probably the best workhorse in the year, top 5 in touchdowns. He had 50 receptions. They are worried about just that workload and just kind of the fact that they did run him into the ground last year, but they're going to do it again this year. I mean, given the fact that, it is a walk year and they're not going to gain anything by, babying him along. So, I was kind of split on both these guys. If I had to be hard pressed, I'd go with Jacobs just on recency bias alone, even though, JC was the 1-1 last year. But I think my point is both these guys, in overall points and half PPR probably had 70 to 80 more points than a guy like Pollard. I agree that Pollard's probably going to move up in terms of total points given his increased workload, but these guys are just falling too far, in my opinion, when I think they should be at full go borderline first rounders based on production, if not, top of the second round.
Yeah, and that's fair for sure. For me, it's like there's just too many question marks, I feel like, with JT at the moment. And then, yeah, with Josh Jacobs, like you said, he is the workhorse there for that team. For me, I think I see more upside with Pollard in this instance to warrant to draft him a little bit higher than, maybe what is warranted. But, for me, I feel like, yeah, I'm going to go towards the trajectory there for Pollard. Again, with that offensive line and, with the lack of other, I guess, people for that offense to go to. So, but we'll agree to disagree, bro. That's cool.
It's all fair. It's all fair. All right, you're kicking off round 3. Who do you got?
Yeah, round 3. In terms of the picks here, oh man, I could definitely talk about the first one on that list there, but I am gonna go with actually I'll go with the first one there. I gotta go with Chris Olave. For me, you know, I really like Olave. Maybe I'm always gunning for the upside a little bit, but honestly, it's like with Derek Carr over there now. Derek Carr, he has the habit, right, of locking onto that wide out a little bit with Devontae Adams and such. So I feel like with Olave, and then is Michael Thomas, is he going to be healthy and such? I'm anticipating maybe not completely healthy, or maybe he doesn't play like a full 17 game schedule. So that's for me. I feel like with Olave, there's a lot of upside there for him. So for me, I really like the Olave pick there. Again, half PPR. I feel like there's that premium a little bit on the wideouts. Olave with that New Orleans team, that defense too. Not to jump around, but that New Orleans defense and that team, I think they also have a pretty weak schedule the first half of the season. I don't think they play like a team that was like over 500 for like the first like 8 weeks or something. So, weaker schedule there for the Saints. So for me, I got to love Olave there for the first pick in the third round.
Yeah, no, I like Olave. Obviously, with what you said about Carr, I mean, to produce, a top 3 wide receiver with Devontae Adams, not to say that Devontae didn't pull a lot of weight there in that relationship is one thing, but Derek Carr has perennially been a guy who's put up pretty good passing yards. He does, create some pretty good and productive fantasy wide receivers. So I think in moving to New Orleans is a perfect fit, and it's a good change of pace for him. And Olave was producing with Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, others. I mean, he had a really productive rookie year, pushing for that rookie of the year, at least on offense. So I think year 2 is going to be a good one for him. The skill set is there. It's more about the situation. So if the situation works out, which I think it will, definitely be an improvement on last year. You are adding a number 1, number 2 type guy right there.
Yeah, I mean that's the upside I think for the Olave, and for me, I'm really excited about that. The downside, like I don't see too much of downside. Maybe Michael Thomas does play, 17 games, takes away some targets away from him. Like that could definitely be the downside. But Kamara, like he's been hurt ever so often too. So for me, it's like the prime weapon is Olave, and if the defense is going to do their job and get the offense some reps there, then I feel like Olave is going to get a lot of opportunities. So.
Yeah.
But
Plus,
yeah,
like, I was gonna say, plus, who's really banking on Michael Thomas to have a big year? I mean, he's been an absolute ghost over the last 2 seasons, and it's like I just stay away from him. I think I drafted him 2 years ago, and it was like kind of. I think I realized like, man, this is gonna be a damn good, sleeper this year, and it was just he just never woke up. So
yeah,
yeah, I feel like somebody's gonna grab Thomas and be just holding that bag and feeling like trash. I think with just how injury prone he's been over the last couple seasons.
yeah. And if you are able to get like Michael Thomas, like maybe in the later rounds, like that could be a nice, potential sleeper pick if he is able to play like 12, 13 games at a high level. That could be something there. But yeah, I'm just not banking that much, and that bodes well for I think Olave owners out there. So yeah, cool.
Yeah. I mean, if Thomas is absolutely free, I mean, if he's
Mhm.
free, go ahead and grab him. If he is one of your last picks, go take him. Take a flyer on him. But yeah, it's just like
Yeah,
the investment of like a mid to late round pick would be a little bit too much for me.
cool. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Who do you have in the third round that intrigued you here?
Yeah. Man, quarterback starts to get my eye based on what was happening last year. You had like, three guys who were really in that elite category. I think you could do no wrong with the three guys on the board, but for me, I think another name that stands out, and you're drafting them kind of at ADP, is Joe Mixon. Last year only played 14 games, but still had 60 receptions, 1,200 all-purpose yards. There's no Samaje P. Ryan there to kind of vulture any of his carries or touchdowns. As long as he doesn't get injured, suspended, whatever it could be. But yeah, overall, I mean, he's going to provide that consistent volume for a top five offense that really does like to run the ball, and he's a really great pass catcher out of the backfield. I mean, last year, the year before, this guy was a first round running back. Um, skills may be starting to diminish for a guy like Joe Mixon, just given that he's probably nearing that turn of age 30. But in the same sense, I mean, when he's on the field and healthy, I think his second half was extremely productive. I mean, I think he came out of the gates really slow and really hurt a lot of fantasy owners, but really turned on the Jets late in the year. And I think this Bengals team's going to be full throttle all year. I think they're hungry. Obviously came up short last year in the playoffs. I think they'd want to get back to that mountaintop and definitely win it all this year. But I see all systems go for a guy like Mixon too, as long as he doesn't get suspended. And I know he's been kind of in the headlines for some rumors swirling about his offseason allegations and stuff, but I think he was cleared for one of those charges. So hopefully, if he's just cleared of everything and he's ready to go, I think if you can grab him in the third round, and let's say you've already drafted a guy like Kelce, or you got a top running back and a top wide receiver, like to make him your number two, I think is just a complete steal.
Yeah, he's always been kind of that fixture. I feel like the old reliable, right? He's not the most explosive running back. Never really has been, right? But he's always kind of been that workhorse, a three down back, for this team there. And I definitely agree. I think with the Bengals, maybe they do try to even out the run game a little bit with the pass game, but I do wonder about like Chase Brown if he's going to be a running back that takes some reps for him, but it's always one of those things about like I think he might have been like a fourth, fifth round or something like that. It's always interesting when they select running backs like that, and all of a sudden they get like 200 carries in a year of some sort. So because I definitely saw a lot of talent there from Chase Brown. So but Mixon third round here. Again, like you said, if you did take a Kelce or some wideouts up there, I think it's nice to have kind of that old reliable type of running back that gets those reps because I think that's the key thing is when you select running backs this high, or first couple of rounds, right? You want them to be playing. So Mixon will get you to some of that. So
For sure.
cool.
On to round 4, Wayne, who do you have?
Oh man, so I already took I already looked at the other tight end and everything. I don't want to regurgitate too much on tight ends as much, but I just feel like it's such a premium, to have good pass catching tight ends here. But I'm gonna go with DJ Moore here. I feel like DJ Moore. He's been a wideout that like would get 1,000 yards with like C-level type quarterbacks, and now he has Justin Fields. And we saw in the preseason how they just did like a little screen, and he was able to take it to the house from there. So I feel like with DJ Moore having a quarterback with the arm talent of Justin Fields, I think that's a win for any type of DJ Moore fantasy owners here. So for me, like value wise, I definitely feel like 4th round there, DJ Moore. Like he could potentially get like 80, 90 receptions, I feel like, and maybe like 8 touchdowns, 1,000+ yards. So I feel like again, the value perspective, I see some upside from DJ Moore in this front.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think the talent is 100% there. It's not a matter of talent for me. DJ Moore is a stud. He's a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. I'm glad he's a Bear. I'm glad he's going to propel that offense and our wide receiving core for the next few seasons. I think the only thing that I'm still struggling with the Bears is I know at least their O-line is still, with improvements, still toward the bottom 10 in the league in terms of protection. I saw Tevin Jenkins is injured. I'm thinking about Fields because I have my eye on Justin Fields as far as quarterback to draft. But given how much Fields ran last year, and yes, like in improving that wide receiver core, I think like he will start to mature in terms of staying in the pocket, passing it a little bit. Like I think he's an accurate passer too, so I think they'll connect and lock up enough. Given that Moore had around 65 receptions last year, I think 800 or so yards, 7 TDs. I can't remember fully who his passer was all throughout the year. I mean, I feel like did it bounce around from quarterback to quarterback last season or the one prior?
Yeah,
but,
PJ Walker, I think, was one of them. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if Darnold was still a part of the mix or something last year, but did it start with Mayfield? It might have started with Mayfield.
I think so.
Maybe I'm confusing years. I guess I'm getting to this point of like, can I see Moore being like traditional Moore, like what I would see his potential being with a real pocket passer type quarterback? Like if he played with even a Kirk Cousins, even if he was playing with Joe Burrow, he'd be insane. I'm just like, I'm wondering truly what his upside, should look like this year based on what his numbers were last year. I'm more on the side of, I see slight improvements, maybe in the 70 reception range, maybe gets to 800, 900 yards. I see a handful of touchdowns, but we see this Bears team being very run heavy, not only with Fields, but this 3-headed monster they've got behind him. So I'm a little skeptical, not to say him going off the board as your wide receiver 21 is a bad thing, but I'm more or less tempering my own expectations on the ceiling of a guy like DJ Moore.
No, I totally understand that for sure. I look at the, maybe wide receivers behind him that were drafted. I look at Deontay Johnson, and then I also look at Chris Godwin. I think, Deontay Johnson, he's going to be the second wideout in that instance with Pickens now, I feel like, or they're going to share reps there. And then similar thing with Godwin and Evans. Granted, those are maybe a little bit more pass friendly type of teams there, but with DJ Moore, I think that's where I see like he's always been a guy that gets yards, and then I think he'll also get some short passes as well, like we saw with the screens and things like that. Slants, I think he'll be more so involved there. So, but to your point, like Justin Fields and that Bears offense really hasn't really shown too much. So I think a lot of it is based off potential, but I think that's the idea for me is I'm going for the upside for that.
Fair enough.
What do you got?
So for here, I'm assuming I didn't grab a quarterback. Man, if I'm in round 4 and I've got 3 playmakers in front of me, man, Joe Burrow looks really good at QB5. I mean, he's right at ADP for the most part. He was the QB4 last year, but I think you're getting a slight discount when it comes to him versus guys like Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. I mean, Lamar Jackson being above him based on Lamar's own injury history, like I get a little nervous about going out on a limb with a guy like Lamar, even though I think the Ravens' offense is, definitely improved. I think for me last year, like I was saying with Jamar Chase, they were doing a lot more checkdowns, a lot more short, passing routes with Burrow, and I think based on the fact he was, a 60% completion rate on deep balls, he was only trailing Geno Smith, surprisingly, last year for deep ball pass completion rate. I see them getting back into maybe some more downfield type play. I mean, they're too explosive of a team, but quarterback, the wide receiving core, I mean, an upgraded offensive line in that running game. I feel like they could really turn it up a little bit. They grabbed obviously Orlando Brown, we talked about. From the Chiefs as a guy who can add extra protection for Burrow. I just feel like, if you want to spend your first 3 rounds on, some high-end position players versus, maybe diving in at quarterback right away in round 3, if you wait just one more round and Burrow's on the board, I feel like you're going to be right kind of near even on some of those top-end quarterbacks. A guy like Mahomes is probably the best comp. But, yeah, man, I feel really good about what he's going to do this year.
Well, I 100% agree. I think for that draft position, what players were taken ahead, the quarterbacks that were taken ahead, and quarterbacks even taken behind, I think he's going to do better than Justin Herbert, taken there in the 5th round. So, like you mentioned, if you did take some of those running backs, tight ends, wide receivers before Joe Burrow, there at the 4th round, there, I feel like in the later half of the 4th round is. That's a good deal, I think. So, and like you mentioned, he has everything stacked for him. I feel like, if he can stay healthy, if the players can stay healthy, it's going to be a great season, I think, for the Bengals here. So,
Definitely. How do you feel about round 5?
Man, round 5 here. So, looking at here, I like. And this is definitely where it gets interesting, right? I feel like with wide receivers, with running backs, or any of the positions, right? There's always those question marks, and it's like, okay, which of these question marks is going to be the least, I don't know, obtrusive for me to actually like want to take this player? So, uh, in terms of, I guess, like a quality player that I see, having a positive value compared to where they're drafted here, I'm gonna have to go with. You know what? I think I see some upside for Christian Watson here, actually, and I kind of hate to say it, but I definitely do. I think Christian Watson. I think it was like week 10. It was all of a sudden like, hey, Aaron Rodgers. We don't have any wideouts, but we do have this wideout that's like ultra physically talented that we drafted in the 2nd round. Let's throw him the ball more, and he did, and he did a tremendous job. So I guess if I am the Green Bay Packers, I'm going to be like, oh, we learned something about this Christian Watson guy, so let's see if we can utilize him more. And I think there's like some projections about him getting like 60 some odd receptions and maybe like close to 1,000 yards. So I see some value there. He is like 6'5" and like this physical freak of nature as well. And with Jordan Love kind of in the background there, and I know they're going to probably try to be more of a running team, but still, he's eventually going to have to throw the ball, right? And I feel like that's going to be where Watson. I know there's also Romeo Doubs, but I think Christian Watson's the guy there. So I got to factor in that and say like Watson. He has that wide receiver one again, upside potential there for a team that's like okay, Romeo Doubs, solid wide receiver, but not that same talent level as what we saw with Christian Watson, who also got, I think, got like 7 TDs. Again, this was like all like in the second half of this past season. So I think that's, for me at least, looking at every player that was drafted there in the 5th round, I feel like that was some pretty solid value there.
Yeah, I like Christian Watson's talent. Green Bay has a top 8 offensive line ranked by PFF. So I think, Love will at least have the protection he needs to be able to transition in as a, at least for Green Bay, the QB1, and hopefully, the future that they've invested in. So we'll see, what his upside truly is, how he'll be able to do over a 17 game season. But I think all that being said, like you're saying, there really is not a lot of competition in Green Bay for targets, and they kind of cleared house when they got rid of Rodgers. He took a lot of his cast of characters, fit them to New York, so it's kind of like I think it's a fresh opportunity. Obviously, you said the 7 touchdown receptions. I mean, his size. I mean, he is kind of a deep ball, jump ball type threat. If they need to go downtown, they have somebody they can rely on there, and it'll be an interesting year in Green Bay. I mean, this is an interesting year to try to select fantasy talent off that team because Dillon and Jones are competing in the backfield, and they obviously got the new quarterback and everything else like that. So it's kind of up for grabs. But I think that if you're looking at Watson, a guy like DeAndre Hopkins with a pretty poor Tennessee, quarterback under center, Terry McLaurin's got turf toe right now, and he'll be with somewhat of a rookie, sophomore type quarterback in Sam Howell. So it's like, I don't know, as you move down the board, receiver really starts to thin out quickly, I think, even after the 4th round. So why not grab the upside pick in his sophomore year and Christian Watson, those fresh legs, and give it a go?
Yeah, I agree. No, for sure. And I mean, Terry McLaurin, I think, was the other one I would possibly consider. But like you mentioned, it's like who are you betting on? Are we betting on Sam Howell a little bit, or are we betting on Jordan Love a little bit here? But like you mentioned, I just like the upside. I feel like with Christian Watson getting touchdowns, getting receptions, getting yards. They got really nothing to lose, and with LaFleur, still there, I think, right? Like he's gonna try to figure out how to get him the ball. So.
For sure.
Cool. What do you got?
My pick here. Yeah. My pick here. This was a no-brainer for me. I had him last year. Had him over the first 13 games of the season. He was almost at 1,000 yards rushing. Didn't have as many touchdowns, but he was definitely showing himself to be the bell cow in Houston. I think this guy's an absolute beast. Dameon Pierce. He also had 30 receptions to boot. Now I know they brought in, obviously CJ Stroud, and Devin Singletary is going to push him for some carries. But they have kind of assured, at least the press that, Dameon Pierce is still like their 3 down back, and, they'll go to Singletary in more like, 3rd down scenarios, pass catching type scenarios. And we kind of know what Devin Singletary is. So all this talk about, he's a huge threat to, it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't buy into stuff like that. It's like he'll be a nice piece, maybe in the pass game, but I just don't see him as being like any sort of real threat to Dameon Pierce. But you give it an extra game for him. He's over 1,000 yards rushing in his rookie year. He was battling an ankle injury last year. They basically said he's 100%. He's not even thinking about it. Already getting a pretty good workload in the preseason, and kind of tearing up camp. So again, we get to round 5, and maybe I'm able to secure my 2nd or maybe 3rd running back at that point. He becomes my flex option. Like, I'm super happy about that.
Yeah, Pierce is a very solid RB2 flex, I would say. Not too much, I guess, in terms of overall downside. I feel like, like you mentioned, Singletary isn't really much of an or he's not going to take too many reps, I feel like, from Pierce there. And, rookie quarterback too. What's the rookie quarterback's best friend? It's usually the running back there. So I feel like he's going to be able to do that. And then Stroud's, he's a pretty good progression reading quarterback. So I think he's going to get some checkdowns there for Pierce as well. So there definitely is a lot more upside potential. Again, compared to, some of the other players that were, maybe drafted beforehand, like with Connor with Kyler Murray not there, like they're going to, safeties are going to be in the box and everything. So I don't know how much more Connor his upside is going to be. Might get some touchdowns here and there, but that's about it. Sanders, there is some potential upside there, like just lack of competition. But I definitely, between Sanders and like Pierce, I would definitely pick Pierce. I think in terms of this situation there. offensive line, I think, is one reason. Just the offensive line for Houston's pretty solid with Tunsil there, the left tackle. Then yeah, Madison. They're going to be passing the ball. Madison is not. I think that was like, all right, Dalvin Cook, we'll see you go and everything. This Madison guy, like he's like RB2, RB3. I feel like for most teams. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that in terms of value.
Yeah, I don't mind Madison as like in this round. I'm like, okay, cool. Like if you want to grab Madison, maybe round 5, round 6, like I'm kind of fine with that because I felt like he always did a good job of spelling Dalvin Cook, but he's not Dalvin Cook. Like he's not the same talent. He's not going to run at the same efficiency levels. I don't think he's. I don't know what age he is, but I think he's also starting to get up there as well for his own self. So, yeah, I mean, at least from these groupings of running backs, I'm definitely going Pierce. But yeah, no, I think there's some value to be seen. I think in that round at running back, but yeah, I got my guy.
Yeah, no, I think it's solid. So, and then I think moving on to the 6th round here is where we're at now.
Yep.
Man, there's quite a variety, I think, of running backs at the top there, with some upside. I see our Justin Fields as well, but in terms of like value and kind of what they can bring to the table, competition, etc., I gotta go with, you know what? I like Trevor Lawrence. I actually do. I think he's going to build off of what the playoff win that they had last year. They added Calvin Ridley, so I feel like there's some upside potential with regards to getting more receiving yards, then maybe passing the ball a little bit more. So I feel like Trevor Lawrence, and this is kind of hard to say, I think with Justin Fields and all, but Justin Fields, he might get the rushing yards compared to like Trevor Lawrence, but in terms of fantasy value, but I think Trevor Lawrence is probably going to have a better overall year. Just the weapons and that Trevor Lawrence has compared to maybe Justin Fields, better developed offensive line, etc. ETN as well. So I feel like Trevor Lawrence is going to have a really good, solid season. And late, the last pick there in the sixth round, getting a quarterback there, I feel like Trevor Lawrence, he's not a rookie anymore. He's not a second year. He's a third year, and he's shown pretty good, solid progression, in year 2. So with Doug Peterson still at the helm there, I think I really like that pick there by Loza for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think Lawrence is just kind of moving up, the ranks. I mean, for him and Herbert to be maybe a round apart, I mean, that seems a little unfair. I think they're on par even today. It'll just take Lawrence to have another season to kind of show that. But like you're saying, you add Calvin Ridley to that mix, and Tank Bigsby is kind of doing a lot more of the power rushing to pair with ETN. I mean, I think that offense is definitely going to take a step. They already showed out last year, and Lawrence is just going to have another year under his belt. I think he's locked and loaded, ready to go. So I think that's a great pick. Personally, man, just like we were talking about DJ Moore, Justin Fields, man, at the 6th round, I mean, kind of looking through this, if I hadn't had my eye on other quarterbacks, like I would have totally ditched it and just waited till the 6th round to grab Justin Fields because, I mean, last year, once you look at mid-year and on, he was top 5.5 PPR for any quarterback. I mean, just based on that rushing game, the 2nd most rushing yards of all time in a single season. He's basically a running back at quarterback. I mean, with some passing ability. Now you add DJ Moore, again, like I'm not in love with DJ Moore if I'm using a high pick, but in the same sense, like that's going to open up the offense. It's definitely going to make the offense better. And I just think that Justin Fields can be this, the straw that stirs the drink. And I think he's just going to eat all year. Like they're going to be, I'm still like, when we talk about Bears, we're not going to get into NFL predictions on this episode, but maybe on the next one. But it's like, I think the Bears are still going to be playing from behind a lot. I think they've got some huge holes on the line, and even looking at the entire defense, I'm still a little bit skeptical. But it's like, yeah, man, they're going to let him do whatever he wants to do, and man, if he finishes top 3, I will not be surprised.
Yeah, I think I think the consensus here is round 6 is a pretty good spot for these. Was it 30 now quarterbacks? I feel like in terms of a value, and I think both are set up to enhance what they've done previously. Just a better overall roster, some more wideouts, and just since they have got more seasons under the belt, a little bit more smarter and everything there. So yeah, I think 6th round, these two quarterbacks with high upside potential, I feel like are pretty solid picks.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because it makes you beg the question, like, if I looked at some of the leaders in terms of teams in my league last year, a lot of them took quarterbacks within the first 4 rounds. And I think a lot of analysts are like, you got to jump on a Mahomes, Allen, Hurts to like really secure yourself at the quarterback position. But it's like we start to move down this draft board, and I'm like, do we? I mean, like, if you really believe in Lawrence, if you really believe in Fields, like, why are we scrambling to run and go, lock up our quarterback? Like, I don't know, man. It's making me think a lot. Like, if I can wait that long and still secure my guy, like a Justin Fields, even a Lawrence, like, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid I think way of thinking, and it's like if you can secure some starting caliber wideouts or running backs there, then I think that's great value that you can not use and then draft Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence there at the 6th round.
For sure. How do you feel about round 7?
Man, round 7 here. So, yeah, not to go on the quarterback route. That's just a quick note there. I feel like Deshaun Watson is also pretty good value at round 7 there. But venturing off of that, um, I think I got to go with. I see some value with Montgomery actually here. So round 7. If Montgomery I think is like your flex option, or maybe an RB2 on like a good matchup type of week. We saw what the Lions did with Javonte Williams, right? So I think that was like one thing to consider. There is see can you just kind of vulture those touchdowns and get those touchdowns because. David Montgomery, like he is that. So, and I know that there's Gibbs, right? He's going to get a lot of the receptions and such, but in terms of a touchdown kind of machine, if you will, and also somebody to just get some yardage, that's where I see Montgomery. Round 7 here. I think there's some upside there for Detroit. And yeah, I think that's the idea. It's Detroit's system. I think it just suits David Montgomery so well here. So that's where I see there's some value here.
Yeah, I mean, he's established himself as having a pretty high floor. I mean, all the years in Chicago, albeit he was a little bit inefficient, he was always pretty consistent over the course of a 17-game season. You always felt like you were going to get a certain level of productivity out of Montgomery. So moving him to Detroit, which is arguably a better offense. I mean, they have a top 5 offensive line. Like you're saying with Gibbs, rookie, he's going to be dynamic. I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the pass game. We'll see how he gets involved in the rush game as well. But I see this Lions team taking a step in the NFC North, especially on the offensive side, and I think he's going to benefit from a lot of the field position and just opportunities he's going to have in the red zone, and also just kind of being a solid every down kind of back. Hear him. 9, every down kind of back. Hear him.
Yeah, and I think I meant Jamal Williams, not Javonte. But yeah, no, to your point, it's just kind of a plug and play. I feel like with what Jamal was able to do that previous year. So yeah, Montgomery I think is a great fit there. So, but yeah, I think who is your pick on the 7th round?
Yeah, for the 7th round, this was a slam dunk for me with Christian Kirk at wide receiver 35. Last year in half PPR, he was ranked 12 as a receiver. So bringing over Calvin Ridley, like I'm a little bit weary of how high I want to grab Ridley. Like I definitely think he's going to make an impact. I think he's going to be a guy who is going to be helpful for Lawrence in opening up space for other guys and kind of being that decoy threat, especially after not playing all of last season. So who stands to benefit from Ridley being on the squad? I think again it's Christian Kirk. Last year he had 84 receptions, 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns. The AFC South is kind of beaten up. A lot of teams are recharging, trying to reload with rookie quarterbacks. Like, I think Jacksonville's going to, again, have a solid year as a team. That offense is growing together. I think Kirk and Lawrence established a really good rapport last year. I don't see that changing. I love Kirk's makeup. I just like how tenacious he kind of is and how like much of an ankle biter he kind of comes off as. Like, I think I said this last year, but it's like, his talent alone, he's not a round seven kind of guy in terms of his talent alone, but he's just going to fight for everything he gets. And you got to appreciate that in him. And I think it'll show in his counting stats.
Yeah, no, and again, half PPR league, Christian Kirk, like, is it third down, right? I think that's where Trevor Lawrence, he's already built in that trust. So it's like, all right, Calvin Ridley's going to eat some of those reps, but like you were mentioning, if a lot of teams are, or a lot of people are predicting the Jaguars to, I think, probably finish first in this division. So if that's true, then the offense is going to get some first downs there, and I think Christian Kirk is going to be a big part of that. So with that relationship already built in from Trevor Lawrence to Kirk. So, I think with Ridley, it's like, all right, that's going to open up the offense a little bit more and get Christian Kirk a little bit more space to work with there. So, I'm definitely optimistic, I think, there.
Sounds good. How about round 8?
Man, round 8. I think, again, in terms of the value where it's at in round 8 here, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs wideout here, Sky Moore. I just feel like, again, I mentioned before, Kansas City really didn't add any like wide receivers. Are they going to toss to Kelce like 200 times this season? Maybe, but I definitely feel like some of those targets are going to go off to Sky Moore there. Kadarius Toney, I know he's kind of the other wide out there, but Sky Moore, I think what he was able to showcase, I know in the Super Bowl, as well as later in the season, that last year was his rookie season. This year, I think he's going to kind of grow upon that. He kind of is like that mini, if you will, like Tyreek Hill in a way, but obviously not the same skill level. So I just think that, with the way that the Kansas City Chiefs play, there is some downside in terms of like how Patrick Mahomes likes to distribute the ball a little bit more to the wide receivers a little bit evenly. But again, on a good matchup, Patrick Mahomes is going to pass for like close to probably 5,000 yards, or if not more this season. And if Kelce's only going to do like, maybe 1,500, the rest of that, 3,500 yards is going to gotta come from somewhere. I think, potentially maybe 1,000 of that, or maybe like 800, 900 of that's going to come to Sky Moore, and he's probably going to get like 7, 8 touchdowns as well too. So,
yeah, he's the one receiver in that core that really has his position kind of baked in at the slot. There's a lot of guys fighting for targets on the outside. I mean, they've added Rashee Rice through the draft. Richie James was signed, who I think is a competent pass catcher. I do like Richie James, but in the same sense, like he's not going to be somebody who breaks out and has like 100 receptions this season. It's not a guy I'm really like kind of nervous about. MVS still kind of there. They'll get some work, but no, I'm with you. I mean, if anything, looking at the Tyreek Hill type of role in a Patrick Mahomes led offense with Andy Reid, like Sky Moore is a pretty good bet here at round 8, especially when you're looking at wide receiver 42. I mean, I could see a couple guys above him in other rounds where I'm like, yeah, no way. I'd much rather take the gamble on Sky Moore. So I think that's a smart pick.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you got on round 8 here?
For me, it's the wide receiver above more in the rankings, Jordan Addison. I like the fact that he's taking over the Adam Thielen role. He's just a hell of a lot younger and more explosive, I guess. But, with Justin Jefferson getting all that attention in Minnesota on offense, I mean, last year they had the number 2 passing offense in the league. Jordan Addison, they say, great route tree, can get separation. He's obviously a lot more athletic than what they had at the wide receiver 2 last year. If anything, he can improve on his physicality. His explosiveness is something they probably can't control, but in the same sense, if he's a good route runner, he can get separation. JJ's opening up a lot of space for him. Besides TJ Hawkinson, they're going to need somebody else who's going to step up and kind of, take those targets. I don't think KJ Osborne is that guy. So, they invested a high round pick on him. They obviously want him to be, a huge part in that offense, especially as they move forward here. So, give me Jordan Addison in round 8, and I think I'd be, feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, there's something towards those Viking rookie wide receivers, right? Whether it's the Randy Mosses of the world. Not to say like Addison's going to approach that level, but they always seem to come up with some top level talent there. I feel like so. Like you mentioned, having those two pairs with Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson, like if the coverage is going to lean towards them, that's going to open things up for Addison. I feel like, and they're going to be passing a ton. I feel like so. No, I think it's a solid pick in terms of value there.
Round 9.
Round 9. I am looking at the new England wide receiver here, Juju Smith-Schuster. He's been like it seems like forever. I think he's like only like 26 or something, right? Though, but Juju Smith-Schuster, he's kind of taking over that Jacoby Myers role from last year. Still a solid overall wide receiver, and if they can figure out that quarterback position a little bit, whether it's Mac Jones, Zappy, I don't know who else, but I definitely feel like Juju Smith-Schuster, he's going to get a majority of those wide receiver reps that Myers got, right? So if not, probably more. So I feel like that's a solid pick over here. Compared to like I do see. Odell as well, but I think there's some question marks with regards to that offense and where does Odell fit in there. Gabe Davis, possibly, but I feel like Stephon Diggs is still kind of the guy there. So yeah, for me, Juju Smith-Schuster for wide receiver in round 9, I feel like is solid value here.
Yeah, him moving over to New England. The only thing I would consider, and I haven't looked up the stats, but in the last like handful of seasons with Mac Jones or, maybe Zappy, like what's the highest a New England receiver has been ranked? Would you say like has Myers broken like the top 20 mark in terms of wide receivers last 3 years?
I don't know if he broke last year. That's something maybe we can check up a little bit. But no, to your point, like I feel like Bill Belichick and whatever offense he kind of orchestrates doesn't really favor wide receivers too much. Maybe more of the slot type of wide receivers like the Edelmans, the Wes Welkers a little bit there. So, but yeah, I that's definitely where I see like Juju Smith-Schuster. Again, I'm kind of like this round. He's going to get like the primary one wide receiver reps there, and I think that's going to push him a little bit more there. And I think Juju Smith-Schuster, just as last year, yeah, when he was with Kansas City. Let's see. He had 78 receptions, 900 plus yards, and 3 touchdowns. Again, that's with Kansas City. But then Jacoby, I think he had maybe some similar type of numbers there as well. Except now he's in with the not Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders there. So still see some sort of, I guess, trends or basically them switching spots there and getting some more touchdowns possibly too.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're basically at the same level as like what you're saying. And if you're just replacing one for the other, which I think is a pretty fair swap when you just think about the talents of both guys. Yeah, I mean, if he can find himself around the, DJ Moore from Carolina or, a poor man's Chris Olave, obviously from, just looking at last year's stats, I think, unless you really want to make the Gabe Davis gamble there, I think Smith-Schuster has a pretty solid floor, whereas Gabe Davis, you're kind of banking on some upside there. I'm a little bit salty after what happened last year with my Gabe Davis hype train, so I'm just gonna pump the brakes there, let somebody else deal with him this year, and reap the rewards if he breaks out. But actually, I had a different guy in mind here. For me, I think again, like I'm getting on this quarterback thing here, and I'm seeing a guy that I just think you're getting really great value. If you're in round 9, you don't have a quarterback, and you can grab the guy who, was a QB8 last year. I mean, he was fourth in the yard, fourth in overall yards passing last year. He was sixth in touchdowns. There's no more Dalvin Cook. He adds Jordan Addison to his mix. We've talked about a lot about how pass heavy Minnesota is going to be. They were the number 2 passing offense last year. I don't really expect that to change a whole lot. Cousins is getting older. We do see a lot of inconsistency in his game. I mean, he might have a blow up game one week and then a very subpar game next week, which can make it really challenging for fantasy managers, not knowing, which Kirk Cousins you're going to get. But, in the same sense, if you grab a Kirk Cousins and you want to pair him with a rookie quarterback, one of these explosive types, or, maybe an aging Aaron Rodgers or something else, like, I think there are some options here, but I think, overall, we're getting really fair value for Kirk Cousins in round 9, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do like Kirk Cousins. It's definitely like one of those things where, with Kirk Cousins, they're round 9. And maybe this is like where I'm thinking about quarterbacks and kind of where they're being drafted. I believe Geno, is like the one quarterback where it's like, all right, maybe I would wait for a Geno Smith. I think it looks like he's there later in like round 11, right? A little bit more, not to jump too much ahead. But I feel like him there, I don't want to say I like his upside better than, I guess, what Kirk Cousins can do. I think that was just my only thought there with regards to potentially like other quarterbacks that might be some solid options there. But, Kirk Cousins, in a way, I feel like he's kind of like where Tom Brady was, like maybe, 10 years ago in terms of fantasy football, like 10 years ago and how it was there, where it's like you kind of know what to expect. Like he's going to get a bunch of yards. He's going to get 25 maybe touchdowns or something like that, and just have solid overall numbers from the passing perspective. But that's about it. He's not going to run for too much. But at the same time, like I think that's pretty solid overall. Kind of getting that sure thing there at round 9.
For sure. And if I can give a couple shouts to other guys I think are worth, drafting in this round. I mean, I think the top 2 backs in this round, Herbert and Samaje Perine, are decent investments this year because Chicago, I think it's clear that Herbert's probably going to get, first ups in terms of the majority of workload out of the gate. Montgomery did pretty well in that. So did Khalil Herbert last year. His yards per carry were, ridiculous when he was spelling Montgomery. And then Perine, he really showed out for the Bengals when Mixon was out, and with Denver kind of waiting for Javonte Williams to come back from injury. Just another guy who, he's not going to be an RB1 in my opinion, but a solid flex play, week in, week out until, maybe Javonte comes around. Like we're kind of waiting on that. But in the interim, I mean, I think Sean Payton will learn how to use him.
Yeah, and I think somebody did. I forget who it was exactly. I think I saw something on the Fantasy Stock Exchange. I think they actually talked about this a little bit, but you can usually find, or you have more of a hit, a higher hit rate. Like I think at rounds, I believe it's like basically right around now where we're talking about, like maybe like round 7 or later in terms of running backs, just because you're drafting basically players that are maybe the second in the depth chart, or maybe it's like a later round rookie, right? That isn't getting too much attention, but maybe it's like a fourth or fifth round rookie behind like an aging veteran of some sort. That certainly is where there's an opportunity, I think, to get some good value here and kind of take some swings. So no, I think those are pretty solid overall takes there. And Herbert, yeah, like he's no rookie. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry last season, so he might shoulder the load a little bit this season, right? With like Rashawn Johnson, Deontay Foreman, but I feel like there's going to be plenty of I think carries to go around for the Bears. So
for sure. How about for round 10? Who do you got?
Yeah, round 10. Some solid couple wideouts here that I'm looking at, but I think I'll mention at least one here. I think Rondale Moore. I know there's a lot of question marks, I think, with regards to what's happening in terms of quarterbacking at Arizona, but I think what we saw from Rondale Moore last season, I think, was pretty remarkable in terms of I think that last year was his rookie season. So if he can kind of take it to the next level there, there's no DeAndre Hopkins anymore to kind of take some of those reps. They do still have Marquise Brown. So, but at the same time, like Rondell Moore, like he was pretty solid overall. And I think in terms of a PPR league, like he'll definitely get the receptions. He's kind of like a speedy, quick guy there. So that's where I see there's some value for Rondell Moore. Again, round 10 here. The other one I was talking about was, hopefully you're not talking about him, but Elijah Moore too. I think both those wideouts, again, kind of speedy wideout or speedy wide receivers. Maybe Elijah Moore has a better situation there, but I think for me, Rondell Moore is the better talent, and I think he has less of he doesn't have an Amari Cooper, I think, to kind of compete with in terms of targets there. So.
Yeah. Elijah Moore was the guy I starred. I do have another guy that I'd be interested in this round, but yeah, I mean, I think they're both kind of similar. Like Elijah Moore and Zay Flowers to me are two guys that I feel like are being looked at as these do-it-all types. I mean, they might, get some plays out of the slot, maybe on the outside. They might do some, return yards, in either the kick return, punt return games. I think if I had to take one, I'd probably rather go with Zay Flowers just on the fact that he's just breaking into the league. He's getting all sorts of press at, preseason and training camp just in terms of his explosiveness, his speed, his elusiveness. A lot of analysts are talking about him being the wide receiver one for the Ravens this year, just in terms of pure productivity. So if he's beating, ODB and, even Bateman for, total yardage, who knows what he would do against, Mark Andrews in total numbers at the end of the year. But if they're really that high on him, I mean, I think he's worth the gamble in this round for sure. Elijah Moore, I just looking at him for a bounce back. I mean, I think coming out of the gate with the Jets, I think the numbers were, his first 7 games, he averaged 67 yards catching in those first 7 in his rookie year with 6 touchdowns overall. And then, he got a season-ending injury there. And then we kind of moved into the Zach Wilson / Mike White era. And it's just kind of like, I felt like he was just kind of stuck in a cluster of receivers that just weren't getting enough work and, weren't thriving in an offense that was, pretty poor. So, give him a new shot here, with Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, he'll have competition with Amari Cooper and Donovan, Peoples-Jones. But in the same sense, like if they are looking at him to kind of be that do-it-all role, you might get some rushing yards here, maybe some passing yards, maybe, 5 to 6 catches a game like his rookie year. And, that'll have value.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Moore brothers, if you will, I think there's some upside here at the round 10 there. So, yeah.
For sure. How do you feel about round 11?
Yeah. So I think I already mentioned Geno a little bit there, but in terms of a running back that I potentially see some upside here, again, in this later rounds, if you're looking for running backs, I like I think I like Elijah Mitchell. McCaffrey, right? Like sometimes he gets hurt, and I think that's like one thing. If McCaffrey were to get hurt, or even if that, like I think I remember seeing something with regards to the reps that or carries that both of them got, and I think Elijah Mitchell was right there with regards to carries with McCaffrey. During their time, it's just that. Elijah Mitchell didn't really get the third down passing downs, right? So I think that's like something to consider is Elijah Mitchell. He can definitely be like when McCaffrey wasn't there, he was pretty solid. And then when Elijah Mitchell got hurt, they're like, oh, we have like a short window for a Super Bowl run or whatever. Let's get one of the best running backs out there, McCaffrey. So just showcasing, I guess, how good Elijah Mitchell was there. And yeah, if you get him in the later round like here, I think that's like a nice like flex option. Or hey, yeah, what would have happened if McCaffrey were to get hurt, right? So just something to keep in mind of there. I think Elijah Mitchell here, I think is a pretty solid pick.
Yeah, I mean Elijah Mitchell to me is like an elite handcuff. in case CMC goes down, which has happened a lot over CMC's career. So, he goes down and you've got, a back that's right in the, the thick of one of the best, rushing games in the league. And I don't think that's really going to change out of San Francisco. So, no, I think that'd be a pretty safe handcuff type pick in Elijah Mitchell. I do feel the same way about Jaylen Warren, to be honest with you, because last year, I mean, his average yards per catch and average, you know, rush yards per attempt were better than Najee Harris. And Najee Harris was a complete bust for me last year. I actually went on a limb and, grabbed him in the first round because I really liked his reception totals for running backs. I mean, he was in like the 80 reception territory, but I mean, as that year played out, it just kind of showed that Najee Harris is looking pretty average at the NFL level, and he's getting outperformed by Jaylen Warren. And even in the preseason, Jaylen Warren ripped off, I think it was something like a 50, 60-yard touchdown run, and was kind of barking about, I want my opportunity. I want, a bigger part of this offense. So it seems like he's got, that fire in him. And, if all things were held equal, minus where Najee Harris was drafted and probably what he's being paid, I think they would give Warren a bigger look here. So we'll just see how this year kind of starts to play out for Pittsburgh. But I do have my eye on, Jaylen Warren. And like you were saying with Geno for quarterback, I do also have my eye on Anthony Richardson as somebody I'd be willing to throw, a pick at just to have a handcuff of my own for, let's say I go out and grab a Kirk Cousins or I grab, somebody else in those middle type rounds. I mean, I feel like Richardson has basically all the athleticism you could, ever want in somebody behind center. Whether or not he's an accurate passer is one thing, but to be a productive fantasy player, I could for sure see him, just gobble up a ton of rush yards behind center.
Yeah, no, I agree with that with Richardson. Late round, if maybe like a QB2, right? If maybe you're kind of like maybe took like a Cousins, right? And Cousins kind of has that floor, but at the same time, like his upside isn't the greatest, right? But you kind of get that opposite with a Richardson. So maybe something like that could be a nice combination there. But yeah, no, I agree. I think with the whole Warren and kind of where he stacks with Harris, right? It definitely is one of those things where it's like the GM kind of has to cover his ass with like, oh, we drafted this guy, and I think it was a first or second rounder, right? So it's like, why would I, start this player? I don't even know if Warren was drafted. Why would I start this guy who's like killing Najee Harris in terms of overall production in every single stat out there? So that is, I think, a good pick and probably something similar to like the Elijah Mitchell arena where it's like, oh, if the RB1 were to go down, or if, in Warren's case, outperform the RB1, then that certainly becomes a high potential pick there.
Definitely, and he was undrafted for the record. So yeah, there probably is something in that's holding him back just slightly above Harris.
Yeah, he's definitely covering his ass then there. So
round 12.
Yeah, round 12. Definitely seeing some, second string type of talent here. So it's like, all right, which one of these maybe has a high upside, or depending on where you at in terms of who you drafted earlier, something to consider here too. Maybe you get something with a lower floor. So from a low floor standpoint, I feel like with the situation that he's currently in right now, with a rookie quarterback, I actually like, especially for a half PPR or any type of PPR league, Adam Thielen, I think, is a solid type of pick here. Kind of like the Michael Thomas type of feel, I think, in a way. This guy can get some receptions, right? So, rookie quarterback, has I think he's going to be competing with a DJ Shark there in terms of receptions again for a rookie quarterback, and I think Adam Thielen has always been that solid veteran presence, wide out who can just collect catches. So I feel like if you do have maybe you took kind of a gamble or something like that. Maybe you did take a Juju ball and again you want like a low ceiling type of wide out. Maybe taking like Adam Thielen here in the later rounds could be something. If you're kind of tapped out in terms of taking swings. So yeah, I think Adam Thielen here again with the situation he's in is going to get some receptions.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of competition. I mean, DJ Chark is one thing, but Thielen's a consummate professional. Bryce Young seemingly has, more talent than his size suggests. So we'll see how good of a year he can put together in his first season. But I think Thielen will be kind of his safety blanket, especially, his first year, just, having that veteran presence there probably be, just good security for him. So, round 12, you're looking for a guy who maybe catches like 60, 70 balls. Like we'll see how many yards he compiles or touchdowns he's able to score, but like could be somebody who's just a solid flex to backup type receiver when you have bye weeks and stuff. So we'll just see how the year goes in Carolina for Thielen and the rest of the team. But no, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, for sure. Who do you pick here?
I think for me, I've just been hearing a lot of great things about Devon Achane out of Miami. Obviously, a complete burner out of the backfield, kind of your pass catcher type, probably your third round, your third down type of guy. Mostert and Wilson are pretty solid running backs, especially as a duo, and they've got that history there with Mike McDaniels. Funny enough, what they were saying about Achane is that this is the kind of guy that fits perfectly into a Mike Daniels system of kind of running it to the outside with running backs. Somebody who can catch the ball a little bit, elite type of speed. They said a lot of what McDaniel sees in Achane is what he saw in Raheem Mostert when he was a rookie. So with Mostert being over the age of 30 now, there's going to come a time in a day where he's a step slower or, possibly, re-injured yet again because Mostert's, dealt with a lot of injuries over the years. And even Jeff Wilson. I mean, he hasn't been like, the most healthy guy over his, own stretch. But I think if Achane just kind of comes out, plays his game, and can prove himself, maybe his workload starts to increase a little bit in Miami. And, in that offense with Tua, hopefully being healthy, and you got Hill and Waddle, and probably a lot of points hitting that board. I feel like Achane's going to be, a really nice part of this team, and would be just like a decent flyer, even though, my expectations here also could be, you probably could be dropping them too after week 2, week 3, week 4. So, at this point, it's kind of like high risk, high reward. And if it doesn't work out, just cut bait.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, like this is the area where you could draft a late round type of running back, right? And that's like one of the strategies I wrote down here is be open to drafting like a late round type of running back here because a situation can open up where Wilson and Mostert, like those are two injury-ridden running backs there, so he's bound to get some opportunities there. So and yeah, Mike McDaniels knows what to do with speed and talent. So I feel like with the two speedsters at the outside, that can definitely open up the middle for the running back position there. So no, I've heard different people like say like, oh, Achane, like maybe not somebody to look into for drafting, but I'm just like, why not? Like especially this late in the rounds. So yeah, I think that's a solid pick there.
Definitely. How do you feel about round 13?
So round 13 again, we're kind of like for me, it's like we could definitely go for the ceiling or try to shoot it out of the ballpark here. And I'm like, I see some looks here that I feel like could be solid overall picks. I'm gonna go with, I kind of liked what I saw from him in the preseason so far. And I like the aspect that he has Brian Dable as like the head coach and will probably know how to use him. I gotta go Jalen Hyatt. I think I only watched like 2 snaps of him, but like all in one sequence. He dropped a ball that like could have been a touchdown, and then the next play he scored right at the seam, ran like a seam route and just blew past the safeties there and got the touchdown. So it's like he can definitely get those fly routes and everything and hit those home runs, and that's always been his I guess his calling card. So Jalen Hyatt could definitely be maybe what like Dotson kind of was like last year, right? Where I think Dotson like 7-8 touchdowns or something like that as a rookie. I see Jalen Hyatt could potentially be that, just kind of blow the roof off of the defense there. So why not take kind of a flyer kind of with Jalen Hyatt there and Brian Dable, kind of trusting them over there and having a kind of a true wide receiver weapon that Daniel Jones didn't really have last year as much. So I feel like, Jalen Hyatt, why not? Rookie year, but has all the explosive talent you could possibly want.
Yeah, I mean, who's his competition? Isaiah Hodgins, Sterling Shepard, maybe Darren Waller, but Waller's, had his own injuries. I mean, I think Waller's a fair, fine, grab at tight end and what I think is a pretty weak cohort this year outside of Kelce. But I'm actually, going to take Hyatt's pass thrower. So I think Daniel Jones, round 13, is kind of a steal at this point. I mean, again, I know I've been going kind of quarterback heavy in some of my picks here, but I think there is some value the deeper you get into the draft because, last year Daniel Jones was the ranked 13 quarterback. He was better than Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, and Kyler Murray. I mean, fifth in rushing overall in terms of total yardage, and he was only 50 yards behind Jalen Hurts for rushing yards, which is kind of mind-blowing when you actually think about it. But I think with Dable, he's just done such a great job at just coaching this team. I mean, he's just a good NFL head coach, and he knows how to get the most out of his players. I think, the days of Jason Garrett and, Joe Judge are behind the New York Giants at this point. They've actually got somebody who's incredibly competent and just understands how to get the most out of his players. But, just looking at Daniel Jones, he kind of realizes, this guy's going to be at his best when he's on his feet and he's, making plays happen with his legs, keep his pass plays, within reason, get some guys that can, help open up some space like a Jalen Hyatt or, can be kind of your every down security blanket in a guy like Darren Waller. So, if his passing game could just improve, marginally, I think, the floor of his rushing game is pretty solid. And although, Daniel Jones is kind of your QB2 on a fantasy team, I still think, here, if you were to pair him with, like we were saying, with Anthony Richardson or Geno Smith or, Cousins or anybody else, I think, he's a decent guy to have just on your roster.
Yeah, I mean, he can make plays on his feet. And in Dable we trust. Like Dable, I don't think he'll get hurt. Running backs get hurt, quarterbacks get hurt, but the head coach normally doesn't get hurt, right? So I think he'll know what to do with Daniel Jones there, and he knows how to use Daniel Jones' legs. And this will be year 2 now, so year 1, that's kind of like where you're trying to figure things out a little bit, make adjustments, and they were able to win a playoff game there. So I feel like they're going to build off of last year's success. Like you mentioned, getting Waller for mobile quarterbacks. They oftentimes say that mobile quarterback's best friend is a catching tight end there. So I think Waller definitely fits the bill there. And like you mentioned, Hyatt, somebody that can stretch the field. So so that all the safeties aren't just watching Daniel Jones to run the ball. I feel like that's going to be valuable for him. So
no doubt. How about round 14?
Man, we're getting up here now. So round 14, I'm seeing, I'm definitely not gonna, do cop outs and like take, like Justin Tucker or even some of the defenses here. I'm gonna see if I can find some good ones here. Why not look at? I'm gonna look at, say, let's go Chase Claypool. I think there's something there, maybe. And maybe this is me just being like very overly optimistic for the Bears and everything that they're trying to produce, but I think in terms of like a red zone target, like having Chase Claypool, having Cole Kmet, right? I think that'll open up things for Chase Claypool and Justin Fields there. So I see like Chase Claypool kind of being like that red zone target at wideout, and then also giving some explosive plays downfield for Justin Fields to stretch the field there. So, I know they got Mooney and then they had DJ Moore, and it's kind of like why would we want to take the third wideout here? But I see that there's potential upside there. So, and this is, I think, later in the rounds, you got to go for the upside here. So, yeah, just chase Claypool for me.
Yeah, I think Claypool is more like a cesspool for me, man. I don't know. I'm okay with who I'm okay with like who he is in the Bears offense and like how he will attract attention. I just don't know if I can see the counting stats being there for Claypool. And we're having a talent debate too at this point, which kind of sucks because coming out of the gate in his career, I was like, yo, this guy is for real, and this is a deep ball threat. He's consistent. He was putting up good numbers, and it's like it all started to kind of taper off, and like I feel a little bit bad about the second round pick that we gave up to acquire him. I don't know. I just feel like even for who he's competing against in the Bears receiving core, like he's going to have some battles because I think Mooney and Komet are also going to attract some attention in the passing game with more. I'm just not. I'm not sure there's enough to feed all those guys. Um, equitably. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I might be passing on the Claypool opportunity. That's all. That's all I'll really say.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, who would you be taking?
you know, I'm not gonna. You were kind of saying like, you don't want to be that guy who's just taking Justin Tucker because, I mean, it's so easy, dude. Like, I mean, I really want to because I have him start here, but I also had another guy start, and I wasn't sure who you were going to talk about. So, for me,
Uh,
this is kind of a hedge pick, and I think the first running back off the board is interesting. Jerome Ford, he ran a 4.4640. Um, at Cincinnati, he had 20 touchdowns and 1,500 all-purpose yards in his final year there. They got rid of Dearness Johnson. They let Kareem Hunt obviously walk as well. So he's the bona fide number two behind Nick Chubb. Now, Nick Chubb's been like the model of good health and has been an absolute workhorse and is everything you want in, a complete running back. I mean, he's probably one of the best to do it. So this is completely for edge purposes in case a Nick Chubb was to go down. But Cleveland actually, based on PFF, has the second ranked offensive line in the game. You got Watson opening up holes. You got obviously maybe a little bit increased, wide receiving, core now. It's a complete dice roll, but if things were to ever break, for Jerome Ford to have an opportunity, I mean, he's in a really great position to at least be like an RB2, RB3 if he's got, Chubb out for any given week.
yeah, like I mentioned before, like the later rounds are a good time to draft some of these young running backs because a running back can go down. It's a physical game, so I think that's why not take the pick there, and also like the pick after Zamir White, kind of a similar situation there as well, with Josh Jacobs. So yeah, why not take some flyers there?
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're in our final round. ESPN in their latest 12-team half PPR mock draft, it actually did 16 rounds. So what I'm going to allow now, Wayne, is you can pick one from the last two rounds here. So whoever you'd like to pick in rounds 15 or 16, feel free.
Okay. Well, you know what? I do see a lot of like defenses and then some kickers here and stuff. We could definitely talk some of those players a little bit. Uh, you know, uh, I do like New York. Like I gotta always draft. I feel like I've done like maybe 5-6 drafts just to, like test things out a little bit here. I've always consistently picked New Orleans defense just because I think I might have mentioned before they have a very easy schedule. Like, and I see them just dominating a little bit, at least on the defensive side. Maybe they don't win all the games, but I definitely see them keeping their opponents' points level down at least, and then with they still have a very talented defense, just as is, right? So I feel like having that mix of good talent and then also an easy schedule is a great combination if you're looking for a defense that maybe it's like there's 3 or 4 defenses that go ahead of them, like the Cowboys, Steelers, right? I think they're oftentimes kind of picked ahead of them here. Dolphins as well. I certainly see the Saints as a team, at least for the first half of the season, right, being a solid pickup on the defensive side.
Got it. No, I think that's fair. I mean, the NFC South is a wasteland at this point. We'll have to wait and see, if any of these teams can really emerge. I think the Saints are probably the safest bet of everything we're looking at today. So, no, I think that's a totally reasonable pick at this, stage of the draft, especially when you're just filling out your defense and kicker. To go with the kicker, I think Harrison Butker is a decent value this year. I think he was possibly the kicker one the year prior to last. He was dealing with an ankle injury last year, but has an overall 89% completion rate in general. And, usually every year he's averaging 29 field goals and like 47 PATs, and he's in the top ranked offense in the league, both, based on last year and even going into this year's rankings. So, KC's going to be, scoring a lot of touchdowns, being in a lot of red zone, situations. They're going to need Harrison Butker at times to bail them out. But, overall, I just think he's solid. He's probably being drafted at ADP. I mean, being behind Tucker and McPherson on Cincinnati, I think that's a fair spot for him. But I would grab him. If you don't want to spend a premium pick maybe on Tucker at the end of the draft when folks are probably reaching to grab that first kicker or something, or down kind of back. Hear him.
Yes.
Round 9.
No, I think Butker's he's a good solid picker a good solid kicker, right? I think Carlson, McPherson, right? I think those are like the top two, I believe, and then like maybe Elliott as well from Philadelphia. So, if those are the kickers that are going out, and maybe you want to, maybe there was like a nice player out there that you want to pick instead, maybe go for that and wait on for a Harrison Butker. Like this is like the later rounds in the draft, so kickers oftentimes it's like, yeah, you pick one that you just know is going to score points, and he's definitely going to get a lot of extra points. Maybe a 30-40 yarder here and there too. So I think that always makes sense. Maybe for your last pick there.
Yeah. Also give another shout for defense to the Washington Commanders. I don't have a ton of hopes for them, offensively, especially this year, but, PFF ranked them the top 3 defense based on, their front 4. They have 4 former first round picks on that line: Daron Payne, Chase Young, obviously, Montez Sweat, and Jonathan Allen. So it's like they have a very imposing line there. Secondary is pretty solid with Cameron Curl, Kendall Fuller. They drafted Emmanuel Forbes in the first round, and they're hoping on big things from Jamin Davis, and they also grabbed Cody Barton from the Seahawks. But, for them to be the 12th ranked offense when PFF's got them top 3, I think that could provide some value there if you're just obviously being the last one to pick and you can just grab, maybe a top flight defense there, like could be interesting. They do have their hands full in the NFC East with those opponents that they have to play twice a year, but why not? It's a gamble. Go out for it and, go secure it.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a good, awesome front 4, you can do a lot of things, I feel like. And they have a pretty, I think, decent secondary too, from my understanding of things. So that is a pretty awesome and solid overall, I think, defense on that front. But just not as good as the Saints, I mean, again, it's the division, right? It's the weak ass division. So yeah.
I'm also thinking if you're in the AFC South, like I don't know how good the Jaguars defense is this year, but man, if you're playing Houston, Indy, and Tennessee 6 times,
Yeah.
I mean, I like those odds of just having some better games. But again, I don't know who Jaguars are coming in with this year. They don't really seem to be on the board here for considerations in the top 12. So, maybe they're pretty stinky.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, how do you defend the Tennessee Titans? Oh, you just, guard Henry. Just make sure he doesn't run over you, right? Like
for the most part, yeah. All right, well, I guess we're through our 15 rounds here. Wayne, are there any other players that you didn't put a spotlight on, but otherwise are excited to watch this year or possibly draft?
Yeah, I mean players. Yeah, there's so many good players, and I really enjoy just like looking at first, second, third rounds, and just like, all right, which one's gonna suck, which one player's not. Um, I definitely like Olave. I think is like my pick. I think in terms of like, all right, he's has potential to be like the topper. Maybe eventually be like the first or second round value, maybe like next year. So I see some upside there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I really like. He may not get the yardage, but I think that the Lions team is so depleted at wideout these like first couple weeks because of all the suspensions that's happened. I just feel like he's going to get a lot of reps there. Again, PPR league or half PPR league, he's going to get some receptions. So then Garrett Wilson, that should be an interesting pairing with Aaron Rodgers now there, like an actual quarterback to throw him the ball. And we know that if Aaron Rodgers likes you, he's gonna feed you. And I feel like with Garrett Wilson there, that's gonna be a fun combination there to look forward to. I think so. Yeah, those are just a couple ones. I can go on, but yeah, I think those wide receivers out there in like round two at the beginning rounds there, I feel like those guys are gonna be moving on up.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement on the players you mentioned there, just as far as some of those guys breaking out. Garrett Wilson will be fun to watch with Rodgers too. I hope Rodgers can keep it all together and put together another year. It'd be fun to see the Jets in contention. Personally, I don't know. I was looking down the draft board. There were some guys I wanted to talk about but didn't. I think Alvin Kamara in the 6th round is pretty interesting. I mean, at that point, you can probably have 2 running backs that you really like and just throw Kamara, maybe in a bench spot over the first 3 weeks when there's no buys. He comes back,
Mm-hmm.
he's typically perennially been obviously in his prime a top 5 guy. He's more or less now probably top 10, top 15, but who knows? I mean, you get him back in there. He's playing in a really weak NFC South that we're talking about. We know the talent. He's getting up there in age a little bit for running backs. I think his skill set's starting to decrease subtly, but I still think he can be a productive player. And then later rounds, Russell Wilson at the 18th ranked quarterback with Sean Payton coming in. I don't know, man. I want to say that last year what happened in Denver, it was a complete like aberration, and obviously Hackett was fired in his first year, and it was just a complete joke. Man, I'd like to think that guy has enough talent to be better than that. And I think that team is better than what they showed last year. Whether or not Russell Wilson ever gets back up into like the top 6 to 8 territory that he was really at in his prime, I mean, that's one thing, but man, I can see him returning a little bit better value than quarterback 18.
Yeah. No, I agree. You got what Sean Payton at the Rome. Like, didn't he just like make a movie about him or something like that with the whole like taking that year off or whatever for the whole Saints scandal there. So yeah, I feel like why not look at that situation and be like, I think both of us maybe at the beginning of last year thought that that division itself was going to be like just a melee of like all the offenses kind of going after each other, right? And we saw that the Denver Broncos they just didn't have it. That offense was so anemic and everything. So, yeah, this I think again was Sean Payton, one of the best offensive minds out there, who knew how to work with a short quarterback, right, with Drew Brees. And I think Russell Wilson's always said that like Drew Brees was kind of like his idol growing up, right? So because they're kind of the same height, so I definitely feel like he ought to, he ought to be able to revitalize him out of any other coach out there. Sean Payton ought to be the one that kind of revitalizes Russell Wilson's career, maybe to similar extent that he did with Drew Brees there. So, and yeah, they got the talent. They got the talent there. They got a defense there. So, I think it's a good situation for Sean Payton and potentially for Russell Wilson too.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Folks, if you're drafting, take a look at this, draft, obviously our review here. Good luck in your upcoming drafts, as we have this episode posted. But from here, we're going to move on to our final thoughts. So, Wayne, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah. My final thought. I was just thinking. I was thinking about uh, kind of like one of my favorite dishes or one of my favorite things to put on a hot dog, and it was caramelized onions.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I love caramelized onions, and I think it's like the best thing you can get at a ballpark. Right? Is yeah, you can get like a hot dog, you can get a Polish or whatever. But adding those caramelized onions, that's just golden. I feel like so. I don't know what it was, but yeah, like I was looking up recipes on making caramelized onions myself, and just like going to the store, and I don't know, inviting a few friends for the game or whatever to watch, and just making some caramelized onions there because normally you don't go to like a house and they just have caramelized onions sitting there. It's not like raw or they have to grill it. So um, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to say that, Patrick. If you feel any different about caramelized onions, let me know. But what do you think about good old fashioned caramelized onions on anything?
I am quite the fan, dude. I am I would say I'm in the 95th percentile of gentlemen who enjoy caramelized onions. I swear to God, dude, I make caramelized onions all the time at home. It's a very easy thing to do. Most people won't go to that extent with a topping, but essentially olive oil in a pan, drop a full onion in there diced up. I usually add like white wine vinegar, salt, pepper, maybe some garlic powder to it as well, just to give it like even more dynamism, if you may, for any sort of packaged meat product that you're looking to throw on, a piece of bread. So hot dogs, Polishes, man, growing up in Chicago, caramelized onions weren't too far away, especially with some spicy mustard for sausages of any kind. But man, my favorite thing to get at guaranteed rate field, I guess they call it now. Still to this day, even with all the food selections at parks, a Polish with caramelized onions and that spicy mustard, a beer, and you're good to go. But what I'll also give a shout out for with onions is last spring I made beer boiled bratwurst and decided to actually boil my onions also in the same beer with the sausages, and the sausage came out like so juicy, so moist, and kind of incorporated some of that beer flavor, like you would with like a beer battered product of any kind. But the onions as well, man, it was just like everything kind of soaked into the onion too, and it all kind of fused together. But dude, absolutely. Very easy to make as well. You just boil, that beer with the onions and the brats like you would any other, hot dog of any kind on a oven top. So go for it. Have fun, man. It's one of the best accent flavors to any meats you can get, and less is more for me with either burger or sausage toppings these days for sure. And onions kind of leads the way.
Yeah, no, that's a good call, and yeah, especially for people that like, if I remember when in college, right? We would host a party or some sort, have a bunch of beer leftovers. It's like we can't drink all this beer by ourselves, otherwise, we won't wake up for the next morning. So, it was always nice, like, all right, let's get all this beer together, and then let's get some bratwurst or something like that, and have some flavorful bratwurst. So. Just a little something out there for anybody that's listening that doesn't want to become an alcoholic. So, yeah. Uh, Pat, what is your final thought?
Man, so tonight I had a really good dinner. It's definitely a new one, at least in my household. But I had this pineapple teriyaki chicken dish that was just oven baked for like 35 minutes, but basically chicken thighs with diced up pineapple, and then just kind of simmering in the oven with teriyaki sauce. And I dropped that over brown rice. So good, man. It was so good. Everything kind of like fused together, kind of like that Hawaiian, um, you know, kind of influence or, inspiration within the dish, but something different and very satisfying. I even added some cayenne pepper to make it like spicy and sweet. So it was just a good, blend of flavors. But I guess I'm going to throw something at you, Wayne, but I want to know, and this may take a little bit of time, and I can definitely interject with my favorite, but what is your favorite pairing of a fruit and a protein.
Fruit and a protein. No, this isn't gonna take too long. Actually, it is pear with a burger meat with burgers. Uh,
Nice.
it's I think it's like a brandy type of pear that I had it with, but I just remember this distinct taste of pear and then meat because I think towards what you're kind of going at there is that having some sort of citrusy type of fruit oftentimes what does it do to the meat? It causes some sort of chemical reaction that just makes it taste awesome essentially, and I think that's what it is. So but yeah, I had like one of the best burgers ever at Tom and Eddie, I think it was called. It was a burger joint that was made by two former McDonald's executives, actually, around the Chicago area. I don't know if they're still operating right now. Like, I mean, they're they were retired, so they're like 60s, 70 years old. Um, but yeah, they just had this awesome like pear with some like ground beef, a burger, right? And it was just so delicious. Like, just made so much sense there. So I think like that's like one distinct pairing pairing of meat and some sort of fruit that just went so well.
That sounds good, man. And I've never tried that, and I'm not afraid to at all. I'm definitely going to put that on my list. I might even try it at home. Just make some Wagyu burgers on my cast iron, maybe do some smash burgers, and then dice up some pear and just fire away. If you have any other toppings you'd recommend to throw on that, I'm all ears.
Caramelized onions.
Yeah, we're doing it. All right, all right. We're doing it, and I'm
Yeah.
reporting back when that happens for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, sounds good.
at least on my end, with the fruit protein pairing, yeah, just tapping into some like Latin American roots, but lime over steak, man, that just hits the spot. I mean, lime really over anything. It just gives, I think, like the meat some juiciness, some tang. It like, if the meat is let's say even like refrigerated after a few days, I think it like really like reinvigorates it, kind of like vinegar would for like pork or any other sorts
Mhm.
of products. But like you get those fajitas coming out, chicken, steak, whatever else it is, and you just got, just a half of a lime and you just squeeze that over the top with all the other ingredients you can fuse together: beans, guac, some corn tortillas, whatever it is, onions and peppers that are grilled, who knows. But man, I don't know, just kind of like definitely gets me back to like warm weather, the beach, just good eating, good drinking, and all that kind of good fun.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. Yeah, and yeah, like again, it's the whole citrus and meat combination. So it tenderizes the meat. I was just looking at it. I was like, that's like the kind of the kind of chemical reaction or the gastronomy that behind it is that it tenderizes the meat, and it has like another level of flavor there. Another combination I'm thinking about. I was actually just talking about this today. Was somebody was talking about pizza uh, and pineapple, right? It's like, is it actually a combination? And I was like, well, it has to be a certain combination of pizza and like spices, particularly. Because I think that's the biggest thing is that people oftentimes have pizza with pineapple, but it doesn't include some sort of spice to it, whether it be a pepperoni or some sort of giardiniera or some sort of peppered up tomato sauce, right? Because when that doesn't happen, then it's just a trashy, pineapple on a non-spicy pizza and just lacks any type of flavor palette there, and it kind of tastes disgusting there. So, yes, great subject. I feel like as we're getting into the end of summer, right? I feel like that combination of citrus or fruit and meat is a great combination when I think about summer.
And there are too many haters out there on pineapple in like ham pizza. Like I'm okay with it, man. I'm okay with like if you're just gonna go the traditional ham and pineapple, I will totally dive in. But I do agree with you. If you take it to that extra level, I have a pizza spot around me called Bozelli's, and they have this really nice hand tossed pizza you can get. They're spicy Hawaiian, but it's basically jalapeno peppers, a spicy chili paste underneath the cheese instead of a tomato sauce, and then they do pepperoni, like you were mentioning, with the pineapple. And man, it is like the pizza quality is not quite like New York, Chicago, any of these other, classics. But man, that flavor combination, if it could just be elevated by a really good restaurant, like might be one of my favorite combos on a pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the best pineapple pizzas I've had in more recent memory was a place in Seattle called Windy City Pie. It is a deep dish spot, and it's actually really good. Like, it's one of those, oh my God, it's Seattle. Like, they can't touch, Chicago deep dish, whatever. It was actually, I think, made by like a Microsoft engineer who got bored at his job. I think he quit his job, or he was kind of started as, at least I think, as a side hustle of just making pizza. I think he went to like Urbana-Champaign, so he's like a local Chicagoan of some sort. But yeah, moved over to Seattle, started Windy City Pie, and the best pizza, I think it's like their signature deep dish pizza, is like a pepperoni peppered up tomato sauce, and then a pineapple right there. And like I'm blown away by it, and that's where I'm like, it's got to be spicy. Otherwise, I don't know about the ham and pineapple. I feel mixed about it, but put in some pepperoni, put in some spice there, some sauce, spicy sausage in there. Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about these food stereotypes, like a Chicago pizza spot being Seattle. Like, we got to break the mold a little bit. Like, Chicago is more than a hot dog, it's more than a deep dish pizza. Like, there's so much more going on in the culinary scene, in the 2020s than there really was in the 90s. And man, I don't know, man. There's just so many good things out there that, I mean, I feel like get bad press, or like are kind of the oddballs at the table. But man, I don't know, man. My palate's changing every day, and I just like to eat good food, and I like to try new things. So yeah, it's definitely been educational, and I will be putting pears on my burgers very soon here.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I gotta make some caramelized onions this weekend or something, man. That sounds good.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, well, great show. If you're still with us, like, subscribe. On YouTube. Leave us a comment. Let us know who your favorite players are. Half PPR. Where did we go wrong? Which picks do you actually agree with? If you want to go in that route too, on the positivity train. We're on IG at Ball and Breakfast, and then we're also on podcasts, Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you can find us. But with Wayne, I'm Patrick, signing off for the Ball and Breakfast podcast.